History of Aviation podcast with Derrick Beeler, David Rowe, and David Gorman.
Hello, friends. I'm Derrick Beeler, and welcome to the Thanksgiving special episode of the History of Aviation podcast. In this episode 37, myself, David Rowe, and Dave Gorman are joined by special guest Greg Koontz.
And Greg Koontz is one of the world's premier aerobatic instructors and performers, and he has showcased his skill and expertise at air shows all over the world and right here in East Tennessee. Greg, we are so thrilled to have you with us tonight. Can't wait to hear all about what you do and how long you've been doing it and what fun you have, because whenever I think of Greg Koontz, I think about the fun you put in your air show performances.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Listen, it is fun. So I do it.
You know, you were well known for them taking it up to the cockpit for some in-flight commentary, and there's usually a yell and a whoop and a holler and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
Scream, yeah, as you're screaming down and rolling and turning and twisted and everything else. So thanks for that. I've enjoyed seeing you for years.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Like I said, I do enjoy it. I really do.
Well, tell us a little bit about your backstory. When did you start flying and what got you into aviation?
Well, how many minutes do I get for this one?
Well, from what I've read, you've got a long history, so it could take a while.
Well, my dad was a corporate pilot, so he liked flying. And early on, I remember him doing a little bit of CAP flying, and he took the CAP 172 and flew me up to Gadsden, Alabama. Now, I happen to live real close to there now, but when I was 7 years old. And we were going to a Bill Sweet production, was a famous air show producer from the 50s and 60s. And it was about 1960. I was 7 years old. I was born in 53. So I watched the show, and some incredible people were there. Bevo Howard was there. Dick Schramm did the comedy act there. And Bill Barber flew his big horsepower Stearman. Funny story about that later. But after the show, we were walking through the crowd and then onto the ramp, and the performers were standing out next to their airplanes. We went to the Booker that Bevo flew. And my dad introduced me to him, and, he was real nice. And I was looking at his Booker, and there's this writing on the wing, on the bottom wing, on the top of the bottom wing, that looked German. Booker is a German airplane. It was the Germans' trainer for World War II, like our Stearmans. So
yes,
I couldn't read it. It was in English, but it had this little font that made it look kind of German, And so I'm looking at this thing, and I'm going, I finally asked Bevo, I said, what's that say? And he said, well, that explains how this airplane came to the United States as cargo on the Hindenburg. And he started to tell me what the Hindenburg was. He said, well, the Hindenburg. I said, oh, I know what the Hindenburg was. And my dad had just happened to give me a children's book about dirigibles and blimps, etc. And big letters and a little bit of writing in there. And that Hindenburg I remembered. And he was so impressed I knew what the Hindenburg was. I was just lucky that I knew it, because it was fresh in my mind. But so he really started talking to me. And he really made me feel good. He made me feel important. When you're 7 years old, an adult doesn't talk to you like you're a little kid, but talks to you. And he did. And we had a great little conversation. I'll never forget it. And my dad and I were walking back to the airplane to fly back to Birmingham, Alabama, a not very long flight, in the CAP 172. And I said, well, I know what I'm going to do when I grow up. He said, what? I said, I'm going to be an air show pilot. So never gave up. I, didn't know how I was going to do it or anything, but figured it out when I got there, But that's really how I got inspired and started. My dad flew models with me, and, I worked at Burger King at night, and during the summer I had a day job at the UAB, University of Alabama Research Center, taking care of animals. It was actually a super scooper job is all it really was. But anyway, but I just saved every penny. And, if a girl wanted to date me, they had to go to the airport because I didn't have money to do anything else. And that's how I went, learned how to fly. And I Got my license when I was of my birthday, September 1st. I was entering my senior year of high school. I got my license, really excited about it, but I realized I'm out of money. It just cost me so much money to get to that point. I mean, back then it cost me $859 to get my private pilot's license. It was a killer.
Wow.
But I was making $1.05 an hour at Burger King, So it's all relative. But anyway, the kind of end the story, I didn't know how I was going to get the rest of my ratings, but I knew I had to get a commercial and stuff. I'm going to be my air show pilot I wanted to be. And so didn't know what to do. And I sat down and I looked at an Air Progress magazine. Y'all know Bud Davison, the writer?
Yeah.
He writes for EAA a lot.
Yes, sir.
Bud does great articles, and I was always reading his stuff. And I opened it up to read his article, and there's an article about a J3 Cub. And I said, well, that's cute. That would be maybe a neat airplane to buy instead of renting these airplanes. And so I went and got the Sunday paper. I was at home alone that day, looked in the aircraft section, and there's a J3 Cub for sale. But it's in pieces. It's been pretty much restored, but the guy's at the point of putting it back together, but he had to sell it. And went and looked at it. Called the short story because it was a long story back and forth trying to find the rest of the money to get it. But he wanted $1,400 for it, and I had an extra engine, a run out one, but still it was worth something, and I bought it. My dad had to help me with some of the money because I didn't have that much money, but I was a saver, and flew that thing 14 months, flew it 300 hours, got my time for my commercial that way. And then I sold it for $3,000. And I had actually only $1,200 in it because I sold that extra engine. So wrapping this up, I know I'm going to talk.
No, go.
But I took that $3,000 and I put it down at the little FBO. I was Shelby County Airport, south of Birmingham, and I said, I want my ratings. And I got my commercial and my instrument. My multi-engine for $500. Got my instructor and instrument instructor, and went to work for the FBO the day I got my CFI. And there I went. I was no longer a super scooper or a hamburger flipper. I was a professional pilot.
Nice.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. The moral of the story is, if you don't have the money, you don't see the way. Just don't stop kicking and screaming and working and going for it. It's there. It can be had.
Well,
Yeah.
it's fascinating to hear that you saw an air show at the age of 7, met a pilot who took the time to talk to you. You do that yourself today. You spend time with air shows.
He was so inspiring, and I knew that's exactly what I wanted to give back when I told my dad what I wanted to do. I wanted to be that guy. I wanted the guy that not just did flip-flops in an airplane, but talk to people, inspire people if you can. You're not going to inspire everybody, but you're going to catch a few every now and then, and you just got to try.
Right. And it sounds like you didn't have anybody trying to talk you out of it like you were a silly little kid. Here you are at 7 saying, I want to do that. And sure enough, the path was there, and you found a way to get there and had encouragement and support along the way. I mean, that's a fantastic story.
And there's a lot of stories like that, and we see people all the time. Cora and I have mentored a couple of people getting into aviation and helped them and let them work at the house or whatever. And one kid in particular worked for us for 4 years and got out there. Not take his whole story, take forever, but he ended up getting into corporate flying and learned that was a lot of work for too little money. And after years of out there working, we helped him get all his ratings and even had to buy a couple of them for him to get him finished. But he called me last February and said, Greg, I got to tell you, I just got a job with Southwest Airlines.
Oh, man.
That just felt so good. And then he calls me in October and said, Greg, I hate to tell you this, but I quit Southwest. I went, oh no, what happened? How'd you mess that up? He goes, Delta hired me.
Oh,
Nice.
Moving on up.
So it feels so good to just help somebody that was helping himself. He was working hard, no doubt about that. But it feels good to watch it happen.
probably excited about not being in a 737 all the time, too.
Yeah, now he's on Airbus. But, he a few corporate jobs. He ended up with 5 different jet type ratings. Then he got typed in the 737. Now he's typed in the I just said it, the Airbus.
Yep.
And he's got 7 type ratings. I was a corporate pilot for 26 years. That's how I, made a living, and because their shows isn't going to do it. And I got one type rating. I'm proud of it. But he's got 7, and he's like 30 years old.
Well, on his way. Well, now you what was the plane that you soloed in?
Well, it's a joke, really, because I got soloed in a Beechcraft Musketeer.
Wow.
It's just a clunker. People don't even want them. They're rotting on airports everywhere because it's just so terrible. My wife likes to joke with me because I soloed her when she was 17 in a J3 Cub. So at the time I finally had a J3 Cub. So yeah.
Well, I thought I read that you've flown somewhere north of 170 different aircraft,
It's 197 right now. Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
gosh.
Holy cow.
Well, Bud Davidson got me started in that. He's got over 400. And another friend of mine who counts. So, there's always so many people that count. Usually it's people who get a lot of opportunity to fly different things. So Bud does articles about so many airplanes, though, so he's got to fly them all. So there's a lot of people way ahead of me, but it's been fun. I don't count an airplane that I've flown unless I started it and I shut it off and everything in between. I was flying along. I remember one day I went flying with my dad in the corporate jet he flew, and he gave me the controls, and I wiggled it and I turned. It was a Hawker, good old DH-125. But that's not on my list because all I did was just, I didn't really do all the flying.
Right.
So.
Well, now you don't have to answer this, but has there been a plane that you've done all that, started up, flew it, turned it off, everything in between, that you would never fly again? You just didn't feel right.
Yeah, there's been some junk I flew that I wouldn't want to get back in. For sure. I've learned not to be so anxious to fly something just because it's a new airplane to fly.
Yeah.
Look it over a little bit more carefully. But no, there's plenty on the list that don't intrigue me very much. They're just little home-built putt-putts with not much power. That the Volksplane was one of those. It was cute to get in and fly it, but I wouldn't want one.
Don't need to. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need one of those, but I'm still a J3 Cub nut, though. I'll always have a Cub.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you're very active with instruction, and you actually you and your wife run a business down in Alabama where you invite folks in and you give them top to bottom instruction, all kinds of regimes.
Aerobatics.
Aerobatic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an aerobatic school, basically. Because I only want students there for a couple of days. I don't want to get involved in someone getting a private pilot's license or something that takes too much time. I just don't have that time. But and I wouldn't do them right. So I have a 2-day basic aerobatic course and then a 2-day advanced aerobatic course, and that's the way I do it. And I got an aerobatic instructor course. I'm kind of big about people really getting trained to do that and not just fake it. So, but everything has to be done in 2 days. And that worked real well for me. And it's best for the students. What I did is I moved out to the country on the grass strip and took my school with me because I was already doing some instructing while I was a corporate pilot. And I was still a corporate pilot when we moved out to the country on the grass strip. And I kind of said, now that I'm out here, there's no motels. What am I going to do? And where are they going to stay? And I finally said, "Dad, we'll just keep them at the house." So it's a bed and breakfast aerobatic school. And so they come on Monday night. I feed them. So I'm the cook. And give them 3 meals a day. We get up and I do 2 students at a time. And they fly Tuesday and Wednesday. By Wednesday afternoon, I've got them both through, and I'm done. Now, when I first moved out there, I was doing 6 days a week. I was off on was after I quit my corporate flying. In 2000, I moved out there in 2003, and I quit corporate flying completely in 2006. And that's when I just went out there. I just started doing 2 people, 2 days, Another 2 people, 2 days. So I was doing 6 students in 3 groups, 3 2-day sessions. I was working my fanny off. It was too much. But now with doing a lot more air shows than I did back then, I just do 2 days a week. Try to have a little bit of rest somewhere. I did turn 70 in September, so it's getting where it's hard to do that kind of schedule.
Yeah. Well, you've earned that.
Yeah, you are AMP trained, and you do tailwheel endorsements. I mean, you cover a whole lot of ground at that school. It's pretty impressive when you read what you're capable of providing.
Well, I don't teach any AMP stuff. I mean, I got that just so I could take care of my airplanes legally, and I'm not really a great mechanic. I wouldn't want to just take anybody's bananas and do their annual for them. I know my Cubs and I know my decathlons, and I stick with that. And honestly, I'll call in somebody to help me if I get something. I say, the first time I put the mags on the airplane, I went, yeah, I did it for the test and I got my AMP. That's been a while. I'll call somebody in, pay them to help me until I feel comfortable with that task, and then, go from there. And I still do it. I got a Cessna 180 that's my toy, a 55 model, and I've only had it 2 years, so I haven't annualed it myself yet. I call in Chris Rudd, who's a great mechanic, very picky. He'll do an annual for you, I guarantee you. And I just kind of watch him work and kind of learn the airplane better. The aerobatic training is pretty intense. It stays really busy, and that's my forte. I really like teaching aerobatics, and it's kind of bullish about how it ought to be taught right. And if a flight instructor wasn't pretty bullish about his instructing, he's not a very good instructor, to tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. So, it's I enjoy it quite a bit. It's fun. There's not a lot of pressure. There's not a check ride. There's not a completion standard. You teach what you can in 2 days, as best you can, and it works out real well. So they're with me all day for 2 days. 2 people at a time, so I'm cooking breakfast for them and fixing lunch and cooking dinner on the grill and talking to them afterwards until we go to bed. I mean, it's for 2 days you really kind of have them there, that you're living with them for 2 days, and I like that. I get to understand them, understand their problems or their fears or what they didn't learn along the way that I need to kind of help them with. So it's a great way to immerse yourself into it and really do it right. So
that was exactly the word I was thinking about, immersive, because that's what it sounds like. And I would imagine anybody going through that training, that type of experience, really would appreciate obviously the hands-on, but also the intense personal experience that they're getting there with you. So they can talk about those fears, they can express those things, they can work through them, or at least identify them and know that these are things to continue working through.
It gets down to that. You're with them enough to get a little personal and talk about why they're having trouble with this or that, and you find out their fears, or they're getting sick, or that kind of thing. But instructing, there's a lot to the learning curve and understanding what makes a curve not work well. And I find most people are just not taught that well to learn how to fly. Instructors these days are getting them through a school where they're just putting them out real fast. So they just teach them, do this, and it takes off. Do this, and it climbs. Do this, and it descends. They're memorizing everything. They're not really teaching them in their soul to be a pilot. And that's what we're missing these days. There's good instructors out there, guys. Don't write me letters saying that all instructors are bad. They're not. But the tendency is there's so many people that are trying to train now, it becomes a pilot mill, and it's not good in my opinion.
No. Well, safety is the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, you're not going to be safe if you're not well trained, if you don't really understand what you're doing. You don't want all this, you do this, and this, or one day they're going to get in a situation and go, I don't have an app for that. I don't know what to do with that. You want a foundation of understanding that they can think their own way through stuff. That's what it's all about. Aerobatics in particular, just people get killed all the time because they think they're getting good. They get down low to do a roll for their buddies, and and what happened? We got a few accidents here just recently around the world, not just the United States, and you watch those like the T-28 in what country was that in? I just saw it the other day.
Argentina.
South America.
Yeah.
I think it was Argentina.
It was classic. He pulls the nose up, he starts his roll, and then next thing you know, you see it start the barrel because he's reintroducing the lift, and that lift's going to go. It's going to go wherever you point it. If you roll upside down and point that lift to the ground, you're going to go boom, and that's what's happening. People don't. He had the procedure for doing that roll, but didn't really understand what would happen if he didn't push the stick far enough forward while he's doing the roll, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, it's people aren't getting taught right.
Well, that's exactly why you're there.
That's why I'm there, and I enjoy it. I really do.
So now, are you
Greg,
teaching them in your Super Decathlon or the Cub, or what do you typically fly?
I got Super Decathlon is just the best basic instructor you can have for the basic loops, rolls, hammerheads, and spins, or the advanced, which I just think of as things that require some inverted flight, like a Cuban 8. You got to stop it upside down, draw a line, and roll it right side up, or an Immelman where you stop it inverted and roll it out. So things that require inverted flight is my advanced course, including, of course, the biggie, the slow roll, which is the hard one. But the Decathlon's perfect for that. The Decathlon makes you do it right. It's not just like, whoop, boy, roll my extra and just wait, whoop, like that real quick. I'm really good at this. I'll do it the other way now. Now you got to get the rudder and the coordination correct, or you messed it up. And so you'll learn how to fly aerobatics at a decathlon. So that's the only point I teach you. It's the only point out that is strong, dependable, available. It's so there's not a lot of other really good choices for beginning aerobatics, in my opinion. I love to do it. I love teaching a steerman. I've taught plenty of people in steermans and some planes like that, but the real dependable plane on the line and affordable and et cetera is the Decathlon.
Well, you actually sell them, don't you? You're an authorized dealer.
Yeah, it's been a great relationship. In 2003, Jerry Melhoff, who owns the company, then his son has taken it over now, but he called me up, and they've been helping me a little bit. But that's 2003 when I quit my corporate job to make my school and the air shows work for me, and really wanted to be a professional air show pilot and not love corporate flying, but it was time to do that goal that Bevo Howard got me started on, And so I quit, and he calls me up, and I was on the middle of a trip, flying a King Air down in someplace in Florida. I landed in Orlando, Florida, and to pick up some passengers. And so I talked to him a minute. He says, "Hey, Greg, heard you quit your job." I said, "Gone full time." I said, "Yeah, I'm going to do that." And well, I want you in a new one. You're flying that old 91 model and 93 model, and you need to be in a new airplane and show them all for us. I said, well, that's great, but what you got in mind? He wanted to lend me one. He didn't want me to use it for personal use or anything or instructing, because he just wanted it for air shows. He said, now I got to keep 2 airplanes and 2 hangars and 2 insurances and everything. I said, I have a nice offer, but I can't afford your offer. It's going to cost me. And he called me the next day, because I got to get off the phone. I had to fly. He called me next day. What can you get for that 93? I said, well, I don't know. I think I can get 70 for it. And he goes, well, sell the thing. And buy this one. I'll give you one for that amount. And then it was about 105 to buy the new one. A long time ago. But it's been over 20 years now, right at 20 years now. And so I did that. And he decided every year that I need to buy another one. So I sell the one they don't give me. They sell it to me, but it's at a nice discount. And then I just like the first one was, and we do that every year, and that's how they pay me. So they pay me I'm a sponsored performer, and that's been enough to totally live on. But it's it's a nice chunk. I can make the rest of it with my school and stuff to run my life. But so that's what we've been doing ever since. So. In 2008, when they lost a couple of dealers that were in over their head and went bankrupt during that crisis, he invited me to be a dealer. And I went, yeah, I'll do that.
Sure.
That works. And so, yeah, it's been real good. It's been a great relationship with a great company that loves their airplane, loves their employees, and they're really devoted to building great Citabras and Scouts and decathlons. It's just a great operation to work with. I call them today wondering about how one of my clients' airplanes coming, and end up talking to them for, 20 minutes to the floor manager because he's telling me all about the airplane they're building. He's just excited about it. They're that way. Great people to be associated with.
Well, it's interesting. Your plane has sponsors all over the side of it, like a NASCAR car. I work with Bristol Motor Speedway, and I'm looking at your pictures of your plane, and you've just got all these sponsors, and it's just that's what it takes to be an airshow performer. Is you need these people backing you up.
Oh, you really do. Now, we will call American Champion my key sponsor, and the one I'm really making money on. But it's nice to have a company give you the magnetos if you have one go out instead of make you buy it. So they're not giving me a salary, but they're supporting me. SkyTech Starter supports me 100%. If I call them up and they want to get one, what a great company. With Hartzell, they teamed up, merged with Hartzell and Hartzell propeller. Holy cow, what a great propeller, and makes the plane fly so much better. And if I've got a problem, they're backing me up. They'd send me another propeller if they have to. I mean, you just keep me flying. So it's and that's what we need in this business. You need people to kind of support you like that. If things go wrong. How I met SkyTech is before Hartzell bought it, because I tried to start the decathlon on Friday practice day, and my starter fell out the bottom of the airplane in pieces. It kicked back and broke. And I mean, it started kicking, and the propeller went backwards, and I heard go outside, and the parts are on the ground. And I go, holy cow, what am I going to do? I got to fly this show tomorrow. And it's late Friday. I called the factory. I said, send me another starter. They said, we don't keep spare starters here. We're not a starter seller. We build airplanes. And, well, the guys at this SkyTech company? And tell them I need a starter. I got to fly in the morning. Well, I can't. That's all I knew. I hung up. The day was over. Couldn't talk to anybody. Couldn't find anybody. Went to the motel, and came back the next morning at 8:30. Walked in the airfield down to Punta Gorda, Florida, and there's a SkyTech starter setting on the counter in the FBO.
Oh wow!
I walked up and looked at it. I got my name's on it. And called SkyTech, and they caught it before they went home, and I don't know even how they got it there. I mean, but they got it there.
Well, that's good support.
That's what you need.
That's good support.
Yeah, it's great support.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, talk about your air show experience. I mean, you've got a couple of acts. You do the Super Decathlon Aerobatics, and you also have your landing the Cub on the world's smallest airport. Where did that come from?
Well, and part of my history that we haven't talked about, but I hooked up with Colonel Moser's Flying Circus in 1975. And they'd asked me if they could borrow my Cub to do an air show in Alabama. And I said, well, if you let me do the comedy act, I bought another Cub, not the original one that I built my time in. And I bought it from them, and they wanted it back to use in the air show. And I said, well, if you let me do the comedy act, I'll bring it up there, and y'all can do your truck top landing and the rope ladder act. And I did it, and they liked it, so they invited me to some more shows. Well, in the end, before the end of the year, they asked me if I wanted to come work for them. And I did in St. Augustine, Florida. And Aerosport was the FBO. And the side business they did, Colonel Moser's Flying Circus, was a small bunch of pilots. I mean, there's only 4 of us, but we did the whole show. Changed hats, and now I'm doing the comedy act, changed hats again, now I'm flying the decathlon, and that kind of thing. And nice. So I worked for them for 8 years. I think we did. I've always had to guess because my logbooks got burned up when the flight school burned down, but I'm pretty sure I did about 80 shows back then. And so I left in 81 to take the corporate job and didn't do any shows in 93, then decided to get back in it and found a partner, bought a decathlon. So that's how I got rocking and rolling in it. And then I've taken over the comedy act in the Flying Circus and learned how to land on top of the truck, and I always wanted to get back into that. So in 2003, I bought a Cub, and I'd already bought a Cub in '97, but in 2003 I decided to put it in the air shows and did a comedy act with it. It worked, and I said, well, I'm gonna buy me an old truck and put a platform on top of that thing, and I did that, and it developed, and we decided to really carry it a long ways away, so we modified the plane to take the wings on and off easy, and bought a trailer. So every air show, we're taking this thing apart and putting taking it in the trailer and put it together at the show, fly it, then put it back in the box to drive back home. And we did that since 2003. So we did it 18 years is what I'm pretty sure we did it. 18, 19 right in there. And I just retired it. And just flying at a decathlon in the show and putting that Cub together every show and taking it back apart. But during the day, we were busy. We were doing, getting ready to do the comedy act, and we had to do the decathlon act, and we set up, after we land on the truck, we'd stay up there and drive the thing into the crowd and do autographs in between these acts. So we worked all day.
Busy.
And it's just busy. My driver's in his late 70s, and he's driving by himself all over the country. I mean, we've even been down to just north of Mexico City in the Corrector of Mexico, and a couple other places in Mexico and Canada, and all the way to the West Coast a bunch of times. And it's just funny. I said, we got to slow this down.
It's a lot of work.
My wife is retired, and she said, are we just going to do air shows and fly students? Is that it? Until you flop dead? I mean, what are we going to do? And, so I had to agree. There's our other things to do in life other than doing air shows, but I wasn't sure there was, but I figured there must have been. So I slowed it down a little bit. Still, I love the decathlon sponsorship and the airplane, so I'm not giving that up yet. We'll be doing still a lot of that.
That's awesome. I was looking through some photos. I've got pictures of you on top of the truck with your Cub waving to the crowd from Monroe about 2019. You're just driving down and people are yelling and you're waving right back. And then a couple of years later, I've got a shot of you in your decathlon waving through the door at the crowd. So you must get a lot of feedback from the crowd when you're passing by.
Well, in the comedy act, we go down the front of the crowd with the planes on top, playing we got concert speakers on that truck, and playing Sweet Home Alabama as loud as we can. And I mean, everybody's out there just getting it, waving and yee-hawing back to me. And I tell you what, there's nothing more rewarding than having the crowd all excited. Then the Monday morning, they're not going to know my name, but they're in the experience while we're there. That's my job. My job isn't to be a movie star, and I never will be, but my job is to entertain right then and do it. And that's, we won the Bill Barber Award in 2014 for showmanship for all the United States and Canada. I'm very proud of that. And, that it was talking over the radio in the decathlon and doing working the crowd with the comedy act is why we got that. Our job is to entertain that crowd, make the show successful. That's why we're there, and it's fun. It's rewarding. I'm gonna miss it. I'm really gonna miss the comedy act because that got them riled up the most. It really did. So,
there was always somebody oohing and ahhing when the wheel came flying off the airplane. That one always got people going, oh.
Oh yeah, that one's a good one.
And so many people would ask me, how did you land that thing on top of the airplane, on top of the truck after that? They shot the wheel off. There's obviously two wheels on the airplane. You're right there.
But you dropped one. I saw it.
The other question was always at the end, after we give an hour or so of autographs, we'll go back out and fly off the truck. But so many people want to know how we're going to get that airplane back off that truck. And how you do that? Well, we're going to start handing pieces down until it's all down. Then we're going to put it back together, I guess. Or maybe we'll just go real fast and take off.
It all works.
It's fun. The kids love it. It's just great fun.
I mentioned earlier, the way that you are, the way you interact with your fans and folks maybe who are at their very first air show. It's got to take you back to a time when you were 7 and seeing an air show and knowing that, things that you say to those kids might inspire them to seek a career in aviation. That's a big responsibility, but you make it fun. You bring it to them. You show them things that they've not seen before, and maybe they see themselves in that. That's a fantastic career that you've had, and who knows how many people have been inspired to fly, or maybe to look at flying in a whole new light the way you do it, because I know you're under control, but sometimes it looks like you're dipping a wing a little bit too much, and the yeehaws and everything else. I mean, you're having a blast up there, but you put your aircraft through some paces.
Sometimes you're working pretty hard and you're trying to make it look like you're having a blast up there. Oh, when the wind's really bad, and but yeah, you hit it on the head. It's very rewarding. It's and there's a lot of very good air show pilots doing the same job, Dave. It's basically is our job, and that's why you're there. They entertain the crowd. We always say, everybody uses the same phrase, we're there to entertain and inspire, and you got to do it. If you just kind of think you're really cool and going to just disappear and not go out there and shake the hands and do the autographs, then you're missing the whole point. You really are.
Exactly.
It really counts. It makes a big difference.
It does. It does. It's very rewarding. It's not like I feel like I'm sacrificing anything to go do that. You can't wait. Go. I mean, when do you get to go a handful of, we call them hero cards, signature cards, and go over to the ropes and start talking to people? And all these kids are coming and they're rushing up, and the adults and everything, and you're the hero for the day. Like I said, tomorrow they're like, remember your name, but they're in the moment. And boy, you just can't get feedback like that doing anything else. It's fun. Makes you feel good.
So those cards are only for kids? No wonder they look at me so funny when I rush up to the rope.
Oh, I give a lot of them to adults. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. I get some lady come up, she's 70-something years old, and I go, "Well, do you want a car too, little girl?" And, and they just love it. I say something like that because there's so many kids around them, so.
They love it.
Yeah, it's exciting. And there's a lot of friends in this business, too. The air show performers, we call ourselves the air show family, and there's just a lot of closeness. We look after each other and, fuss at each other if they think we're doing something stupid. And, it's a close-knit. When we lose somebody, it's
yeah.
We're really
never want to see that. But hey, you all have
Absolutely
safety
not.
briefings before every air show, so I mean you're taking all that into account every time you fly.
And we talk. We have to be recertified every year, and that's when you sit down and have a real talk about how you're doing, what you're doing. How do you feel about that? Or you look down low that day, and why was that? You got to be that way. We watch after each other. We're having a big convention week after next in Vegas, and the performers are all going to get in one big room for about 2.5 hours, and if the doors closed, the FAA's not allowed in there, non-performers not allowed in there, and we get after each other. We point people out, they're doing something wrong, and it's not for patting anybody on the back. That's when we still go behind the bar and have a talk,
Mm-hmm.
and it's important. It
is. Yeah.
Admit it.
Yeah, because it affects everyone, like you said.
Mistakes creep.
Greg, are there some performers, younger performers now that you really enjoy watching?
I've been helping a few people come along, and that's kind of where I'm at these days. And Eric Egren, flying a T-craft clip wing. He's a farmer and does a great job in that T-craft, and got a lot of good ideas. And watching him come along. I recently mentored Charlie Morris, who's got him down to 250 feet now, or he's just about to get that. He's qualified to get it now, so I think he's waiting after the first year to do it, so it lasts a little longer the way it lapses and runs out. But anyway, I helped him get a decathlon, and I've known him since he was just a little kid, couldn't drive a car, and now he's doing low-level aerobatics and We've done a couple of shows together where we flew at the same time. It's the mentor and the student kind of thing, and having a great time with that. Good personality, really works the crowd well. He understands the business. He's paid attention to it till forever. It comes from third generation of a flying family. So enjoy working with him very closely. Mel Williams, he's he works for Delta as a mechanic. He restored his decathlon back to scratch, and I'm helping him get into it. He wants to inspire. He's a black man, and he wants to inspire the black children who are not being inspired by the environment, and wants them to know they can do this too. And he's got a great presence on the internet. I don't know if y'all have heard of it. He's called Mel the Traveler. He's got a blog or something, and I'm not good at all that stuff, but he is. He's going to be real good at using the internet and flying air shows to get the attention of these kids. And that's his goal, and he's really on his way. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, Greg, where can folks find you via the internet, social media, website, etc.?
You can't lose just by Googling Greg Koontz, but it will be more direct. Just my initials, GK, and the word airshows.com. So it's GKairshows.com. Or direct to me, it's Greg at GKairshows.com.
Okay, and they can folks can see your schedule for the air shows and all that there.
Got a great website. Greg Gibson is a real media expert in this business. Just redid my whole website. It's got a lot more action and up to date, easy to navigate through, get pictures off of, all that stuff. But it still just has the old schedule on it now because we're doing the convention in 2 weeks where we really build our schedule. And then we'll put up the new one. Excuse me.
Okay. Good deal. Well,
the website's fun. Got lots of pictures.
Absolutely, that's great, and we can't say how much we thank you for joining us on the History of Aviation podcast. Right, guys?
Well, thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun. I love hearing myself talk.
Well, and we should do it again soon.
All right, well, give me a call. Maybe we'll find some other stuff to talk about.
We do have lots to cover. I actually learned how to spell Lumshavak, and wasn't able to work that into the conversation until now. But but I want to thank you so much for all the joy you've given me over the years watching you fly, and knowing again that this has been a full-time career. You made the most of it, and bringing that joy. And I love hearing you talk about mentoring because, you've been at this a long time and you've learned a lot, you know a lot, and you're giving back to the community. And it's, as we mentioned, the safety part, of course, is huge, but also it's got to be a thrill for some of these young guys to have Greg Koontz talking to them about aerobatics and what they're doing and helping them refine their craft. So thank you for giving back to the community as well.
Yes.
Well, thank you. It's rewarding. I'm enjoying it. I really am.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure getting to talk with you. It's just great I've seen you in the air many times, but never had a chance to actually speak to you. So this is awesome. Thank you.
Well, thanks, David. I've enjoyed the opportunity. Sure have.
That's Greg Koontz on the History of Aviation podcast.
History of Aviation podcast with Derrick Beeler, David Rowe, and David Gorman.